everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. I'm using Christmas trees lighting right now, but the issue with that is that I might be a little crooked. Hopefully it's not an issue. If it is, I'm sorry. Today is Tuesday, so it's another book review Tuesday. I was in a little bit of a reading slump, so I haven't been reading as much recently. So I decided to do the magical readathon that's been hosted by Book Roast for winter, and I got a prompt that said read a book over 500 pages. This was the week 1 prompt. I'm probably going to be uploading this way after like week 2 or 3 is out, or even after the whole readathon's done. But I chose a book that was over 500 pages, and that book I chose was Eragon. This was also the one I was already reading, so it was a little convenient that the book I was already reading fit for the prompt. I cheated a little bit, I think, because I was already like in the middle of this when the readathon started, but it encouraged me to finish this book, and I think that's the point of the readathon, to read more and to help you finish books. So the final page of this book says it's 517 pages long, so I'm going to summarize this book quickly, then go into my non-spoiler thoughts, and then my spoiler thoughts, and then I will give you my star rating. Oh, I don't know if I said this already, Eragon is by Christopher Paolini. Okay, so to summarize it, Eragon is this poor farm boy, and he goes hunting one day to try and bring back some meat so that he can bring back some money for his family, but instead of finding some meat, he finds a dragon egg. He thinks it's a stone, so he doesn't really know that much about it, and he thinks that it can bring some money, so he brings it back to his home to try and sell it. The dragon egg soon hatches, and he basically has his own little dragon. And then from there, an adventure happens. I don't want to spoil the adventure in case you want to read this for yourself. Just know that there is elves in it, there's magic, dragons, what else is there? Violence. And this book is a lot about Eragon's character development, I feel like. That's all I'm gonna say because I'm really trying not to spoil it, because I know that some people will probably want to read this book in the future. I'm gonna start off with some non-spoiler thoughts. So this book took me 4 months to read. I started reading it September 27th, 2019. I finished reading it December 6th, 2019. So that's not exactly 4 months, but like I read it for part of September, all of October, all of November, and part of December. So that's sort of 4 months to me. I don't know what it was, but something about like the writing style or the pacing of the book, because it felt a little slow, made it so that I didn't want to pick up this book. So I went through whole stretches where I didn't pick it up for like 3 days, and then I would pick it up and read 5 pages and put it back down. And I think that's part of the reason why it took me so long to finish it. It's not that it was a bad book, it was just something about it I didn't like all that much. But then, as I said, I joined the magical readathon, and that really helped encourage me to finish reading this. I have really bad brain fog, so it's been taking me a really long time to read, because when I get brain fog, like, the whole world slows down. So to read 50 pages of this book, it took me 2.5 hours. So for like the past 4 or 5 days, I've been reading 50 pages a day, but spending 2.5 hours every day, which is quite a lot. And it's frustrating that I have to read that much to read such a short amount of the book, but it is what it is. So I haven't really read many books with dragons, so I really like that part of this book, and that was one of the parts of the book that interested me the most. I really appreciated how the author had some injuries and stuff that took a while to heal, and it actually felt real. A lot of times I feel like in books and movies and TV shows, when someone gets an injury, they like heal right away, or they're like, oh, I broke a leg, I'm just gonna keep limping with this broken leg, or something like that, and it feels really unrealistic. But the injuries felt really realistic in this book, and it almost seemed like the author may have done some research into that, which is really cool. I also thought it was cool that the author was, I want to say 16 or 17 when this book was published. I don't remember off the top of my head. A lot of people are like, oh, that's such BS. A teenager couldn't have written something like this. And in my opinion, a teenager could have. There's specifically one part of the book that definitely like told me, oh, a teenager wrote this book, which I will be talking about in a little bit, probably in the spoiler section. So in the acknowledgements, he said a lot of people that helped him write the book, and like he said someone helped him like change the ending and change the start. And the thing is, he probably wrote most of this himself. He probably had all the ideas there, but it seems like he definitely relied on some other people to help him like get the nuts and bolts all fixed and whatnot, which is completely fine. I used to do that with my essays. I still sometimes do it with my essays, which is like when I write an essay for school, I'm not feeling that confident about it, or I'm struggling with it. So I'll go to like the writing center, I'll meet with my professor, I'll get some help, get some feedback, then revise it, which is fine. It's still my work. I did get help from some people, and that's probably what he did. So like he got help, but he definitely wrote this book by himself. So yeah, I thought that's cool that he was so young and he wrote such a long book. Like, this is rather chunky. One last thing that I did like, this book has a pronunciation guide, and it says the ancient language, but this is essentially like a glossary or like a definition guide or like terminology guide or whatever you want to call it. I really appreciate that. In case you haven't seen my review for We Hunt the Flame, that was a fantasy novel that I read recently, and it didn't have one of these like glossary things at the end, and I was like, I have no clue what these words mean. I didn't really use the glossary guide that much in this book, and the reason why is because the words I didn't understand the most were like spells, and spells I'm okay with not knowing what they like exactly mean. Like with Harry Potter, the first time I watched the movies, I was like, I don't really know what each of these spells mean, but that's fine because it's a spell. Also kept forgetting that there was a terminology guide in this book, but that's okay. I definitely recommend using the terminology guide for some of the terms. I really wish I would have used a terminology guide to distinguish the Razaks and the Urgles. Let's see. Although now that I'm looking at it, there was two words that like I needed a clear definition between them, and I don't see it in here. Yeah, these are just language. Okay, I take that back. I would rather have a different terminology guide, because what I really needed to like distinguish for my own brain was the difference between the Razaks and the Urgles, because for the first like, I don't know, 300 pages, I could not figure out how they were different from each other. I was like, they're both villains. Why do they have two different names? And only towards the end did I start to notice the difference. So the location names in this book was really confusing. So I'm the kind of person that even if there is a map, I don't use the map. I just don't picture it visually. I just sort of go along with the story. Now a map would come in handy if I'm watching a movie, because when I watch a movie I can sort of like visualize the locations, the movement that they're making more. But in a book I can't really do that. So most of the like names of the locations I was really confused and I couldn't figure out anything out. So whenever there was like a long description of like all these different cities and stuff, I would just sit there going, I have no clue what is happening at all. Which it's probably just something to do with the way I read and not just the way it was described or anything like that. I have one last thing before I go into my spoiler section. What the frick is this cover? I hate this cover. And who the heck are these characters? Like, I can tell some of them, but there's two on here that I'm like, who are those people? So the guy in the middle is obviously Eragon. That's obviously Arya. That's Murtag, I'm not really sure. There's literally a pronunciation guide, but I don't feel like using it right now. It's like Murtag or Murtag. You'll meet him towards the end of the book. This guy is Brom. This is the Shade. Durza, I think is his name. Who is that? Do you see that? Who is that? And who's that? Because I don't know. Because Galvatrox wasn't like in the book. So if like one of these is supposed to be Galvatrox, I don't know. Let me see. There's like pictures in my edition of the book from the movie. So let's see. I guess that's probably the leader of the Varden. But then who's that? Also in my brain, Jihad was bald. I don't know why. I mean, I guess it described the twins as bald, and for some reason I thought the leader was bald too. I don't know. I like cringe every time I look at my copy of Eragon because I hate this cover. Normally I'm fine with movie covers, but this one, just like the cheesy angle and stuff, and how I can't tell who these characters are and how they don't match up any description in the book, it sort of just like makes me cringe a lot, and it makes me not want to see the movie. Also, this gal, I'm not judging her because I haven't seen the movie yet and I probably will never see the movie, but Arya is nothing like that in my opinion. So definitely not gonna see the movie unless it's like on TV or something, but I'm canceling cable soon. Warning, I am about to go in the spoiler section. If you do not want to be spoiled, then just stop watching the video. If you want to make it so that it shows as you watch the whole video, just double tap the screen and keep double tapping until you get all the way to the end of the video. So spoiler parts. The part that I need to talk about the most, that is insanely like frustrating and creepy, is like Eragon's thoughts about Arya. He's full on like a creep and weirdly obsessed with her, and I hate it. If you were in a coma, would you want someone going, oh, your body's so beautiful, I'm lusting over you? It's like, no, you're in a freaking coma. Like, there's several spots where I was like, this is insanely frustrating, and he shouldn't be obsessed with her or lusting over her. Also, even after she woke up, he was still like obsessed with her, and she clearly was not interested. And that's the part that made me realize, oh, this for sure was written by a teenage boy, because a teenage boy would sexualize a woman who's literally in a coma. Because like, not all teenage boys, let me just say that, like, not all, and I'm not trying to like generalize teenage boys, but I know that some teenage boys have hormones that are raging and they're a little bit woman crazy, and that kind of thing showed in this book. And I'm really surprised that he got so much help from other people and no one edited that part out. I don't understand. Because his parents helped him. And it's one thing, like, if he mentioned it once, but, like, repeatedly mentioning that he's, like, obsessed with her beauty and stuff, I was like, can you just please stop? It's driving me insane. I even worked out a quote on my laptop so that I can read off. One of the most frustrating quotes, and an example of Eragon's thoughts. Although he tried to preserve the elf's modesty, he could not help but notice that underneath the disfiguring marks, her body was exceptionally beautiful. So this was after they rescued her, and she's in this coma, okay? And she was literally, like, whipped and abused and tortured, and they literally, like, describe her body as having so many scabs that her skin's all scaly, and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna lust over her right now. Can you just not? Because that's disgusting, and this boy clearly doesn't understand that women might not be interested in him, especially when he has thoughts like that. I'm not going to be continuing with this series. If he ended up with Arya at the end of the series, it makes me want to puke. It's so gross and annoying. I could talk about how much I hate this for hours as part of the book, but I'm not going to, so I'm gonna, like, move on to my next point. I kept getting the Razags and Zarek confused because they're both very similar names. Like, they both have R's, Z's, A's, and C's in it. I wish they would have sounded a little different so that I could, like, tell them apart more, because I kept getting confused because I'm like, they sound so close to each other, or they, like, spelled so close to each other. I mean, eventually I got the hang of it because the Zarok is the sword, the Razak is the villains, but, like, aren't those pretty close in spelling? And specifically the Z, like, Z isn't a word that's commonly used, like, all the time, so why have two unique names that are unique to this world that have a Z in them? I don't understand the reasoning for that, if that makes any sense. One thing that I think pulled me out of the story a lot was I didn't really feel many emotions while I was reading the book. So I like when I'm reading a book, and I don't like to be depressed from books, because I didn't like how The Death Cure made me depressed. I didn't like how a book that I DNF'd this year, Pretty Girls, made me depressed. But, like, I definitely want to feel sad and happy for the characters, but I wasn't really feeling it that much with this book. So much so that Brom's death, to me, wasn't as sad as selling Caddock. I think that's the horse that they sold. Like, Brom's death wasn't that sad to me compared to selling the horse, and that's saying a lot, and it sort of, like, frustrated me because I knew that Brom's death was supposed to be an emotional moment, but I wasn't feeling emotional at all, and that part frustrated me, but it wasn't, like, the end of the world for me. So a lot of people do compare this book to Lord of the Rings and Star Wars: A New Hope, and I definitely do think that there's a lot of similarities between them. Most of you probably don't know this about me. If you saw my We Hunt the Flame review, you know that I compared a lot of the characters to Hunger Games, but I didn't compare it in a bad way. I actually don't mind that, and I actually like it. That's one of the things I actually liked about this book, which is weird. I love fan fiction. But there was a lot of similarities between Star Wars: A New Hope, and I definitely recognize these similarities. I didn't recognize the Lord of the Rings similarities as much, just because I haven't read Lord of the Rings, and I haven't watched the movies all the way through. Because every time I try and watch movies all the way through, I fall asleep. So I've seen, like, 80% of each movie at most. So I want to talk about the similarities between Star Wars: A New Hope really quickly. So Murtagh or Murtagh is obviously Han Solo. He has no allegiance to any side. He sort of, like, joins later in the story. Brom is obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's literally, like, Eragon's mentor. Eragon is obviously Luke, and Arya is obviously Leia, and they go and rescue Arya. Even the deaths are similar to No Hope. Because, like, okay, it's future Shauna coming in to save the day. I edited out the name I said previously. I completely screwed up. I meant Garrow, Eragon's uncle. Is, like, Luke's uncle dying. And then Brom's death is, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi's death. So, yeah. But I liked that, okay? That's part of the reason I kept reading, because I like those similarities. I like reading fan fiction. I like reading things that are similar to each other, so I kept reading this. I have one more spoilery bit to say before I move on to my star rating, and that is, I'm confused why Arya lived. I said earlier in this video that I appreciated that some of the injuries were, like, very real and the recovery time was real, but why did Arya live? Like, I don't understand. Like, I get that she's super magical, but it still doesn't make sense to me, even in a fantasy world. Like, I just don't understand. Because she was, like, tortured, scabs all over her body. She had to go into a coma to keep herself alive. And then they, like, barely made it to the place in time. I'm just sorry if I'm like maybe not understanding it, or maybe it's supposed to be this way, but like I don't understand how Arya lived, and that part sort of frustrated me because I feel like she should have died. Like with her injuries, she should have died. I have nothing else to say on that. She should have died with her injuries, so I'm confused. Like all of the other injuries, I was like, they're believable. It makes sense the person would survive. With Arya's, I was like, I feel like she should have died. So that was a wee bit frustrating to me. Now, my star rating, the thing you probably have been waiting for. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Well, I really did like the similarities between Star Wars: A New Hope and this book, and I really enjoyed the dragon element and the fantasy element of the book. There were definitely a lot of parts that pulled away from the story for me. It took me 4 months to read this book, so I can't give it 5 stars, which it's not bad to take a long time reading a book, but like if you're taking a long time reading a book because you're not interested in picking it up, that to me means that it can't be a 5-star read for me. And then specifically, like, I can't give anything more than 3 stars because of Eragon's creepy obsession with Arya. I hated that. It was so cringeworthy. But I generally did like the book. I'm not going to be reading the second book probably ever. I mean, like, if I got it for Christmas, I would read like the second book because then I would own it. But like, no. Not gonna read the second book, not gonna finish the series. If you have any thoughts on this book, whether you read it and enjoyed it, or you're completely like trying to avoid it, or you didn't enjoy it when you read it, feel free to comment your opinions down in the comment section, and I'll be trying to reply to you. Please be respectful in the comment section. There are definitely going to be people who disagree with you. And there is a video that I'm going to be linking in the description that sort of is like, it's a review of the book that's saying that the book is bad, but I found it somewhat like humorous, and I found that a lot of the stuff said in the video is like what I thought, but I didn't hate it as much as the person in the video, but it is a very humorous video. So I'll link that down in the description below just because I really enjoyed it. Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier, but the reason why I have the movie cover, I normally would not choose to have this movie cover on my own because I really don't like it. I normally don't mind movie covers, as I said, but I really don't like this one. But I got this from Goodwill, and it was like $2. I could have paid like $10 for a copy that didn't have this cover, but $2 for a book is a steal. You know? Now that I've finished Eragon, I'm just going to show you I'm reading Ishmael next. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a full review on Ishmael or not because I so far just don't know if I have enough strong feelings about this book. It's a little weird so far. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to me if you haven't already. If you would like to follow all of my other social media, it will be linked in the description below. You don't have to. I sometimes post political things on Twitter. I know people don't always like political things. I have a Bookstagram where I post about books. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts on books and you want to see more pictures of books, feel free to follow my Bookstagram. That's all I have for today. I hope everyone is having a great week, and I'll see everyone in a future video. Bye!